Marcus Wellington stands in the airline's corporate boardroom 24 hours later, watching security escort the entire flight crew out with their termination papers. The head flight attendant who humiliated him yesterday now pleads desperately, but Marcus's cold stare reveals this is just the beginning of his calculated revenge. Before we dive into this incredible story of justice and consequences, I want to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more shocking true stories that will leave you speechless. Trust me, what happens next will completely change how you view airline discrimination forever. Let's get started. The previous morning had started like any other Tuesday for Marcus Wellington. As the 42-year-old CEO of Wellington Tech Solutions, a Fortune 500 company worth $800 million, routine business travel was second nature. His custom Armani suit was perfectly pressed, his platinum status with the airline gleamed on his boarding pass, and his mind focused on the crucial merger meeting awaiting him in Los Angeles. Chicago O'Hare Airport buzzed with its usual energy as Marcus approached Gate B7. The first-class boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, and he confidently strode toward the aircraft with his leather briefcase and carry-on. Seat 2A was his assigned spot, clearly printed on his boarding pass alongside his frequent flyer number showing over 2 million accumulated miles. The Boeing 737 stretched before him as he entered, the familiar scent of leather seats and aviation fuel filling his nostrils. Marcus nodded politely to the crew members greeting passengers, his warm smile reflecting years of professional courtesy. He had flown this exact route dozens of times, knew the flight attendants by name, and expected the same respectful treatment he always received. But something felt different today. Sarah Mitchell, a 28-year-old blonde flight attendant, with sharp blue eyes, intercepted Marcus before he reached his seat. Her expression carried a mixture of suspicion and condescension that immediately set Marcus on edge. She looked him up and down, taking in his expensive suit, gold watch, and professional demeanor with obvious skepticism. "Excuse me, sir, but I think you might be confused about your seating assignment," Sarah said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "The economy section is toward the back of the aircraft." Marcus paused, processing her words carefully. In all his years of flying, no crew member had ever questioned his presence in first class. He reached into his jacket pocket and produced his boarding pass, extending it towards Sarah with a patient smile. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," Marcus replied calmly. "This is my seat 2A. Here's my boarding pass." Sarah barely glanced at the document before shaking her head dismissively. "I'm sorry, but there must be some kind of mistake with the system today. These computer errors happen all the time. Let me help you find your correct seat in the main cabin." The conversation began attracting attention from other passengers already seated in first class. Marcus noticed several people pulling out their phones, some discreetly recording the interaction. The familiar weight of discrimination settled on his shoulders like a heavy coat, but he maintained his composure. "Ma'am, I'm a platinum member with this airline," Marcus explained, his voice remaining steady despite the growing humiliation. "I've accumulated over 2 million miles flying with your company. This is definitely my assigned seat." Sarah's eyes narrowed, and she crossed, her arms defensively. "Look, I don't know where you got this boarding pass, but Mr. Blackstone specifically requested seat 2A, and he's one of our most valued customers. Perhaps you borrowed someone else's ticket, or maybe there was some kind of mix-up at the counter." The accusation hit Marcus like a physical blow. The implication that he had somehow fraudulently obtained his ticket was both insulting and racially charged. Other passengers continued staring, their whispered conversations creating a buzz of uncomfortable tension throughout the first class cabin. Marcus took a deep breath, reaching for his wallet to provide additional identification. "Here's my driver's license, my credit card, and my business card. I'm the CEO of Wellington Tech Solutions. I purchased this ticket myself, and I can assure you there's no mistake." Before Sarah could respond, a commotion at the aircraft entrance drew everyone's attention. Richard Blackstone, a portly white man in his 60s wearing a rumpled business suit, huffed down the aisle with obvious agitation. His face was flushed red, sweat beaded on his forehead, and he clutched a crumpled boarding pass in his meaty fist. "There you are," Blackstone bellowed at Sarah. "I've been waiting forever for someone to sort out this seating disaster. My usual, seat better be available, or heads are going to roll." Sarah's entire demeanor changed instantly. Her suspicious glare melted into a warm, accommodating smile as she rushed toward Blackstone with outstretched arms. "Mr. Blackstone, so wonderful to see you again, sir. Don't worry about a thing, we've got everything sorted out for you." Marcus watched in disbelief as Sarah guided Blackstone directly to seat 2A without even asking to see his boarding pass. The contrast in treatment was so stark, so obviously discriminatory, that several passengers audibly gasped. "Wait just a minute," Marcus interjected, stepping forward. "That's my assigned seat. I have the boarding pass right here." Blackstone turned toward Marcus with undisguised contempt. "Listen here, boy. I don't know what kind of scam you're trying to pull, but that's my seat. I fly this route every month, and Sarah here knows exactly who I am." The racial undertone in Blackstone's words sent a chill through the cabin. Marcus felt the familiar sting of discrimination, but this time it was happening in front of dozens of witnesses with cameras recording every moment. Sarah nodded vigorously, supporting Blackstone's claim without hesitation. "Mr. Wellington, I'm going to have to ask you to move to the economy section. Security will escort you if necessary." The threat of security involvement added another layer of humiliation to an already devastating situation. Marcus realized he was facing not just individual prejudice, but systemic discrimination that prioritized a white passenger's demands over his legitimate rights. As security personnel appeared at the aircraft entrance, Marcus made a calculated decision. He could fight this battle now and risk missing his crucial merger meeting, or he could endure the humiliation and plan a more strategic response. His business instincts told him to gather evidence, document everything, and prepare for a war rather than just a battle. "I'll remember this," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying a promise that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. The security officers, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, reluctantly escorted Marcus toward the economy section. As he walked down the aisle, past staring passengers and recording phones, Marcus began mentally calculating his next moves. These people had no idea who they were dealing with, and they were about to learn the consequences of their actions in ways they never imagined. The economy section felt like a completely different world. Marcus found himself squeezed into a middle seat between a crying baby and an overweight passenger whose bulk spilled into his already limited space. The contrast with his rightful first class accommodation was jarring, but more troubling was the systematic nature of the discrimination he was experiencing. Flight attendant supervisor Jessica Torres approached with what initially appeared to be genuine concern. Her Latina heritage and professional demeanor gave Marcus hope that she might provide reasonable assistance where Sarah had failed. Jessica carried herself with authority, her supervisor's badge gleaming under the cabin lights. "Mr. Wellington, I understand there's been some confusion about your seating assignment," Jessica said, kneeling beside his cramped seat. "Could you help me understand what happened?" Marcus carefully explained the entire situation, presenting his boarding pass, identification, and business cards with methodical precision. He detailed his platinum status, his frequent travel history, and the obvious preferential treatment given to Richard Blackstone without any verification of his claims. Jessica examined the documents with what seemed like genuine consideration, but her expression gradually shifted from professional concern to skeptical dismissal. "Mr. Wellington, these business cards could be printed by anyone these days. We see people trying to upgrade themselves with fake credentials all the time." The accusation stung worse than Sarah's initial discrimination. Jessica's words implied that Marcus was not just mistaken, but actively attempting to defraud the airline. The insult was particularly painful coming from another person of color who should have understood the dynamics of racial profiling. "Ma'am, you can verify my identity with a simple phone call to your customer service department," Marcus replied, maintaining his composure despite the growing humiliation. "My frequent flyer account will confirm everything I've told you." Jessica stood up, towering over Marcus in his cramped seat. "Sir, I don't have time to chase down wild stories. Mr. Blackstone is a valued customer with a long history with our airline. Your claims simply don't add up." The conversation was attracting attention from passengers throughout the economy section. Many had already seen the viral videos from first class and recognized Marcus as the victim of obvious discrimination. Their uncomfortable stares and whispered conversations created a buzz of tension that spread through the entire cabin. Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming call from his assistant Linda, but Jessica immediately demanded he turn off the device. "All electronic devices must be powered down for takeoff, sir. Company policy." The timing felt deliberately orchestrated. As Marcus reluctantly powered down his phone, he caught a glimpse of multiple missed calls and urgent text messages from his office. The merger meeting in Los Angeles was critically important, with hundreds of millions of dollars and thousands of jobs hanging in the balance. Meanwhile, in first class, Richard Blackstone had settled comfortably into Marcus's rightful seat. Sarah brought him champagne and warm nuts, fawning over him with obvious deference. The contrast in treatment was so stark that passengers continued, recording the interaction, sharing videos on social media in real time. The situation escalated further when Sarah made an announcement over the aircraft's intercom system. "Ladies and gentlemen, we want to remind all passengers that attempting to use fraudulent documentation to upgrade seating assignments is a federal offense. We appreciate your cooperation in maintaining the integrity of our boarding process." The announcement was clearly directed at Marcus, adding another layer of public humiliation to an already devastating situation. Passengers throughout the aircraft turned to stare at him, their expressions ranging from sympathy to suspicion. The implication that he was a criminal attempting to commit fraud was broadcast to everyone on board. Marcus felt his carefully maintained composure beginning to crack. Years of professional success and earned respect were being stripped away by blatant racism disguised as company policy. He began to understand that this wasn't simply a misunderstanding or individual prejudice, but a systematic pattern of discrimination that prioritized white passengers regardless of actual policies or procedures. Young Kevin Thompson, a black flight attendant who had been quietly observing the situation, approached Marcus with obvious discomfort. Kevin's eyes conveyed sympathy and recognition of the injustice occurring, but his position as a junior employee limited his ability to intervene directly. "Sir, I'm really sorry about this situation," Kevin whispered discreetly. "I wish there was something I could do to help." Before Marcus could respond, Sarah appeared behind Kevin with a sharp rebuke. "Mr. Thompson, please return to your assigned duties immediately. We don't need any additional complications today." Kevin's face flushed with embarrassment and frustration, but he had no choice but to comply. His helpless expression reflected the systematic nature of the discrimination Marcus was facing. Even sympathetic employees were powerless to challenge the established hierarchy that prioritized white passengers over basic fairness. As the aircraft prepared for takeoff, Marcus began calculating his resources and options. His mind shifted from immediate anger to strategic planning. These people had made a catastrophic mistake in targeting him, and they were about to discover the consequences of discriminating against someone with the power and resources to fight back effectively. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, with another targeted announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we want to ensure all passengers understand that disruptive behavior will not be tolerated during this flight. Federal air marshals are on board, and we will not hesitate to involve law enforcement if necessary." The thinly veiled threat was clearly directed at Marcus, painting him as a potential security risk simply for asserting his legitimate rights. The psychological warfare was systematic and deliberate, designed to intimidate him into silence and compliance. As the aircraft taxied toward the runway, Marcus closed his eyes and began planning his methodical revenge. These people had awakened a sleeping giant, and they were about to learn that discrimination against the wrong person could have consequences far beyond their imagination. The plane lifted off into the Chicago sky, carrying Marcus toward what would become the most expensive flight in aviation history for everyone involved in his mistreatment. 30,000 feet above the American heartland, Marcus Wellington transformed from victim to strategist. The aircraft's Wi-Fi connection became his weapon of choice as he began orchestrating what would become the most comprehensive response to airline discrimination in corporate history. His first call went to David Chen, his head of security and former FBI investigator. "David, I need you to drop everything and focus on American Heritage Airlines. I want complete background checks. On every crew member on Flight 447 from Chicago to LAX today, start with Sarah Mitchell and Jessica Torres. Within minutes, David's team was accessing databases, employment records, and social media profiles. The investigation revealed a disturbing pattern of behavior that went far beyond today's incident. Sarah Mitchell had been involved in 3 previous discrimination complaints, all quietly settled by the airline's legal department to avoid public scrutiny. Marcus's legal team, led by civil rights attorney Patricia Washington, immediately began documenting the incident with forensic precision. Every conversation was time-stamped, every witness identified, and every piece of evidence cataloged for what would become a landmark discrimination case. "Patricia, this isn't just about money," Marcus explained during their encrypted phone conversation. "This is about systematic change. I want these people to understand that their actions have consequences." The investigation uncovered shocking connections that elevated the incident from individual prejudice to organized discrimination. Richard Blackstone wasn't just a random passenger demanding preferential treatment. He was the brother-in-law of American Heritage Airlines CEO, William Blackstone. The family connection explained the crew's immediate deference to his demands, without any verification of his claims. Further digging revealed that Sarah Mitchell was dating senior airline executive James Morrison, who had promised her job security and advancement in exchange for special accommodations for VIP passengers. The quid pro quo arrangement created a system where crew members were incentivized to discriminate against paying customers to curry favor with connected individuals. Marcus's assistant Linda coordinated with media contacts at CNN, Fox News, and major newspapers. The story was already gaining traction on social media as passengers shared videos of the discrimination incident. Hashtags like "You're flying while black" and "airline discrimination" began trending nationwide. Meanwhile, the harassment continued throughout the flight. Sarah accidentally spilled coffee on Marcus's laptop while serving other passengers, claiming turbulence had caused the mishap. The timing was suspiciously precise, occurring just as Marcus was documenting the incident for his legal team. Jessica Torres denied Marcus meal service, claiming the economy section had run out of food, while first-class passengers continued receiving multiple courses. When Marcus requested water, he was told the beverage service was temporarily suspended due to safety concerns. The psychological warfare was systematic and cruel. Bathroom access was restricted through deliberately slow responses to call buttons. Reading lights were declared malfunctioning in his section only. Every possible convenience was weaponized to create additional discomfort and humiliation. Kevin Thompson, the sympathetic flight attendant, found an opportunity to discreetly pass Marcus a handwritten note during a bathroom break. The message revealed that the crew was planning to file an incident report, claiming Marcus had been threatening and disruptive throughout the flight. "They're setting you up for arrest when we land," Kevin's note warned. "Captain Morrison is Sarah's boyfriend's brother. This whole thing was planned." The revelation confirmed Marcus's suspicions about organized discrimination. This wasn't random prejudice, but a calculated attack designed to humiliate him and potentially destroy his reputation through false criminal charges. Marcus's security team intercepted communications between crew members discussing their fabricated incident report. The recorded conversations would later become crucial evidence in criminal conspiracy charges, but for now, they served as warning of the crew's escalating retaliation. His merger partners in Los Angeles were notified about the situation and expressed outrage at the discriminatory treatment. The business community began rallying around Marcus, with several major corporations threatening to boycott American Heritage Airlines if the situation wasn't resolved appropriately. The story continued gaining momentum on social media as passengers shared real-time updates. Video footage showed the stark contrast between Marcus's treatment and the preferential service provided to Richard Blackstone, creating a visual narrative that resonated with viewers worldwide. Do you think Marcus should have fought back immediately, or was his strategic approach the right choice? Comment number 1 if you believe patience and planning beats immediate confrontation. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories of justice and consequence. What do you think will happen when this powerful CEO finally reveals his true identity? Will the crew realize their mistake before it's too late? Or are they about to face the consequences of discriminating against the wrong person? The answer will shock you, so stick around for what happens next. Marcus's investigation team discovered that American Heritage Airlines had settled 12 discrimination lawsuits in the previous 2 years, paying millions in damages while implementing no meaningful policy changes. The pattern suggested systematic racism was company policy, not individual employee misconduct. Federal aviation authorities were discreetly notified about the ongoing discrimination, creating a paper trail that would later support criminal civil rights charges. The incident was being documented at every level of government oversight, ensuring comprehensive accountability for all parties involved. As the aircraft began its descent toward Los Angeles, Marcus prepared for the most important landing of his professional career. The next few hours would determine whether systematic airline discrimination would continue unchecked, or whether one man's refusal to accept injustice would change an entire industry forever. The crew had no idea they were about to face a reckoning that would destroy their careers and transform their employer into a cautionary tale about the consequences of racial prejudice in corporate America. As Flight 447 descended through the California sky, Marcus's investigation team delivered intelligence that transformed the situation from discrimination to corporate conspiracy. The connections they uncovered were more extensive and corrupt than anyone had imagined. Richard Blackstone wasn't merely related to the airline's leadership. He was CEO William Blackstone's brother-in-law and a major shareholder in American Heritage Airlines. His monthly flights weren't business travel, but inspection visits to monitor company operations and ensure his family's interests were protected through preferential treatment. The discrimination Marcus experienced was part of a systematic policy designed to accommodate Blackstone family members and their associates, regardless of legitimate passenger rights or federal regulations. Internal communications revealed that crew members received bonuses for managing difficult situations involving minority passengers who might conflict with VIP treatment protocols. Sarah Mitchell's relationship with executive James Morrison went beyond personal romance to professional corruption. Morrison had promised Sarah promotion to international routes and first-class assignments in exchange for ensuring his family members and business associates received premium treatment regardless of their actual ticket status. Marcus's legal team uncovered training materials that explicitly instructed crew members to prioritize established relationships over transactional customers, using coded language that effectively meant prioritizing white passengers over minorities. The materials were distributed through management channels and covered up during federal inspections. The financial investigation revealed that American Heritage Airlines had been systematically overcharging minority passengers through dynamic pricing algorithms that increased ticket costs based on passenger demographics. The discriminatory pricing structure generated millions in additional revenue while creating artificial scarcity that justified removing minority passengers for white VIPs. Kevin Thompson's insider information proved invaluable as he documented the toxic culture that encouraged discrimination through informal rewards and punishments. Crew members who questioned discriminatory policies faced schedule reductions and negative performance reviews, while those who participated received choice assignments and advancement opportunities. The captain, Robert Morrison, was James Morrison's younger brother and a direct beneficiary of the nepotistic hiring practices that prioritized family connections over qualifications. His pilot certification had been fast-tracked through connections, despite marginal performance scores that should have prevented commercial licensing. As passengers began recognizing Marcus from social media coverage, the crew's confidence started wavering. Several economy passengers approached him with expressions of support and offers to serve as witnesses in any legal proceedings. The viral nature of the story meant the crew's actions were being scrutinized by millions of people worldwide. Sarah Mitchell attempted damage control by suddenly offering Marcus upgrades and special accommodations, but her transparent panic only highlighted the systematic nature of the original discrimination. Her nervous energy and frequent glances toward first class revealed her growing awareness of the catastrophic mistake she had made. "Mr. Wellington, I want to apologize for any misunderstanding earlier," Sarah stammered, her voice shaking with obvious fear. "Perhaps we can arrange a more comfortable seat for the remainder of the flight." Marcus looked up from his laptop with cold indifference. "The time for apologies has passed, Ms. Mitchell. You've made your position very clear, and now you'll live with the consequences." The finality in his voice sent shivers through nearby passengers, who recognized they were witnessing a pivotal moment. Marcus's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with Sarah's increasing panic, creating a dramatic tension that felt like the calm before a devastating storm. Jessica Torres made her own desperate attempt at reconciliation, claiming the seating confusion was a computer error that could be easily resolved. Her obvious lies and shifting explanations only provided additional evidence of the discrimination's systematic nature. Marcus's merger partners in Los Angeles had assembled a reception committee that included civil rights leaders, media representatives, and corporate executives ready to express solidarity with his cause. The business community's response demonstrated Marcus's influence and the serious consequences the airline would face for their discriminatory actions. The investigation revealed that federal aviation authorities had received multiple discrimination complaints about American Heritage Airlines, but had failed to take meaningful action due to the company's political connections and lobbying influence. The pattern of regulatory capture explained how systematic discrimination had been allowed to continue unchecked. International media outlets began covering the story as an example of persistent racism in American corporate culture. The global attention created pressure for comprehensive reforms that would extend far beyond American Heritage Airlines to the entire aviation industry. Social media engagement exploded as civil rights organizations, celebrity advocates, and ordinary citizens shared their own experiences with airline discrimination. The hashtag #JusticeForMarcus began trending worldwide, creating a movement that demanded systematic change rather than individual accountability. Marcus's security team intercepted panicked communications between airline executives as they realized the scope of their legal and financial exposure. Emergency board meetings were called, crisis management consultants hired, and legal teams assembled to address what was rapidly becoming the most expensive discrimination case in aviation history. The crew's fabricated incident report became a criminal liability as federal investigators documented the conspiracy to file false charges against Marcus. The attempted frame-up elevated the case from civil discrimination to criminal civil rights violations that could result in prison sentences for all participants. As the aircraft approached LAX, Marcus prepared for a landing that would transform him from victim to victor and change the airline industry forever. The crew's systematic discrimination was about to meet the consequences of targeting someone with the resources and determination to fight back effectively. The wheels touched down on California soil, beginning a chain of events that would destroy careers, bankrupt companies, and establish new standards for corporate accountability in the face of racial discrimination. LAX's Terminal 4 erupted into controlled chaos as Flight 447 reached the gate. News vans lined the arrival area, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like metal flowers seeking justice instead of sunlight. Civil rights leaders stood shoulder to shoulder with business executives, creating an unprecedented coalition of support for Marcus Wellington. Airport security personnel, briefed on the situation during the flight, immediately approached the aircraft with protocols designed to protect Marcus rather than arrest him. The contrast with the crew's expectations created visible confusion as their planned narrative collapsed before implementation. Marcus emerged from the aircraft with the dignity of a man who had never doubted his ultimate vindication. His expensive suit remained immaculate despite hours of harassment, his posture erect with the confidence of someone who controlled the situation rather than being controlled by it. Sarah Mitchell and Jessica Torres followed behind with the haunted expressions of people realizing their careers were over. Their whispered conversations revealed growing panic as they recognized the magnitude of media attention and legal scrutiny they were about to face. "Mr. Wellington," called Patricia Rodriguez from CNN, her microphone extended toward Marcus as cameras captured every moment. "Can you tell us about the discrimination you experienced on today's flight?" Marcus paused at the gate entrance, his security detail creating space for an impromptu press conference that would be viewed by millions. His words were measured and powerful, each sentence carefully crafted to convey both personal hurt and systematic injustice. "What happened today wasn't just individual prejudice," Marcus began, his voice carrying across the crowded terminal. "It was systematic discrimination enabled by corporate policies that prioritize racial bias over basic human dignity. American Heritage Airlines didn't just violate my rights, They violated the principles that make America great. The crowd erupted in applause as Marcus detailed the coordinated harassment he had endured. His calm recitation of facts contrasted sharply with the emotional weight of systematic racism, creating a powerful narrative that resonated with viewers worldwide. Airport police approached Sarah Mitchell with barely concealed disgust. Lieutenant Maria Santos, a 20-year veteran of LAX security, had reviewed the evidence during the flight and was appalled by the crew's behavior. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you about the incident report you filed," Lieutenant Santos said, her voice professional but cold. "There are significant discrepancies between your claims and the evidence we've reviewed." Sarah's face drained of color as she realized her fabricated charges were being investigated rather than accepted. The systematic documentation of her discrimination provided overwhelming evidence of her misconduct, while her false accusations created additional criminal liability. Marcus's merger partners from Techno Dynamics Corporation arrived with expressions of solidarity and outrage. CEO Jennifer Kim approached Marcus with a public embrace that symbolized the business community's support for his cause. "Marcus, what happened to you today is unacceptable in any civilized society," Jennifer announced to the gathered media. "Techno Dynamics will be reviewing all of our travel partnerships, and American Heritage Airlines will not receive another dollar of our business until systematic changes are implemented." The immediate corporate response sent shockwaves through the airline industry. Major companies began issuing statements distancing themselves from American Heritage Airlines, creating financial pressure that would complement the legal and regulatory consequences Marcus was orchestrating. Federal aviation authorities arrived with investigation teams ready to examine every aspect of the airline's policies and procedures. The Department of Transportation's Civil Rights Office opened formal proceedings that would scrutinize decades of company practices and employee training. Marcus's legal team served preliminary lawsuit papers within hours of landing, claiming damages exceeding $50 million for systematic discrimination, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and conspiracy to violate federal civil rights laws. The legal filing was comprehensive and devastating, supported by evidence gathered during the flight. Social media exploded with passenger testimonials about similar experiences on American Heritage Airlines. The hashtag #American Heritage Discrimination revealed dozens of stories from minority passengers who had faced similar treatment, but lacked Marcus's resources to fight back effectively. Employee union representatives distanced themselves from the discriminatory crew members, issuing statements supporting equal treatment for all passengers regardless of race or ethnicity. The union's position isolated Sarah, Jessica, and their conspirators from institutional protection. Kevin Thompson provided sworn testimony to federal investigators, detailing the systematic culture of discrimination he had witnessed throughout his employment. His insider perspective provided crucial evidence of intentional policies rather than individual misconduct. Richard Blackstone attempted to flee the terminal when reporters identified him as the catalyst for the discrimination incident. His panicked retreat was captured on live television, creating additional evidence of conscious wrongdoing rather than innocent misunderstanding. American Heritage Airlines stock price began plummeting within minutes of the story breaking on financial news networks. Investors recognized the massive legal and reputational liability the company faced, triggering automatic sell orders that devastated the company's market valuation. The airline's corporate headquarters became a siege zone as media representatives, protesters, and federal investigators converged on the building. Emergency board meetings were called as executives realized they were facing the most serious crisis in company history. Marcus's security team continued gathering evidence while coordinating with law enforcement agencies investigating potential criminal charges. The systematic nature of the discrimination suggested violations of federal civil rights laws that carried prison sentences for all participants. International attention focused on the incident as an example of persistent American racism in corporate settings. Foreign airlines began advertising their commitment to equal treatment as a competitive advantage over American carriers with discriminatory reputations. As the immediate chaos of landing subsided, Marcus prepared for the systematic destruction of everyone involved in his mistreatment. The discrimination had awakened a sleeping giant with the resources and determination to transform an entire industry through the force of his righteous anger. The reckoning was just beginning, and the consequences would exceed everyone's wildest expectations. The war room at Wellington Tech Solutions hummed with activity as Marcus assembled the most formidable team of lawyers, investigators, and financial analysts ever deployed against corporate discrimination. What had started as a flight delay was evolving into a comprehensive campaign to reshape American aviation through the power of righteous capitalism. Marcus revealed his masterstroke during an emergency strategy session 48 hours after the discrimination incident. For the past 6 months, his investment firm had been quietly acquiring American Heritage Airlines stock through shell companies and proxy investors, accumulating nearly 15% ownership without triggering disclosure requirements. "Gentlemen and ladies," Marcus announced to his assembled team, "we're not just seeking damages from American Heritage Airlines, we're taking it over." The revelation stunned even his most experienced advisors. Marcus had been planning this acquisition for months as part of his portfolio diversification strategy, but the discrimination incident provided the perfect catalyst for a hostile takeover disguised as social justice. Financial analyst Rebecca Chen presented market projections showing American Heritage Airlines' vulnerability to coordinated pressure. The discrimination story has already cost them 12% of their market value. With organized boycotts and federal investigations, we project a 40% decline within 30 days. Marcus's civil rights partnerships weren't just about moral support. They were strategic alliances with pension funds, university endowments, and minority-owned investment firms that controlled billions in assets. Together, they represented enough financial firepower to force major corporate changes through shareholder activism. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People's Pension Fund committed $200 million to the acquisition effort. The United Negro College Fund's endowment added another $100 million. Hispanic and Asian civil rights organizations contributed additional resources, creating an unprecedented coalition of minority capital focused on corporate transformation. Sarah Mitchell received her termination notice via certified mail while being interviewed by FBI investigators about her false incident report. The timing was deliberately humiliating, ensuring she faced unemployment and potential criminal charges simultaneously. Ms. Mitchell, Special Agent David Park explained, "Filing false reports against airline passengers is a federal crime. Your communications with other crew members suggest premeditation and conspiracy, which carries enhanced penalties." Sarah's breakdown was complete and public. Surveillance footage of her escorted removal from airline property went viral, serving as a cautionary tale for other employees considering discriminatory actions against passengers. Jessica Torres faced similar consequences, but her supervisor status created additional liability for enabling systematic discrimination. Federal prosecutors were considering criminal civil rights charges that could result in prison sentences exceeding 5 years. Marcus's legal team uncovered the full scope of American Heritage Airlines' discriminatory practices through court-ordered discovery. Internal emails revealed executives joking about managing the melanin problem and keeping the cabin comfortable for real Americans. The evidence was so damaging that the airline's insurance companies threatened to cancel coverage rather than face unlimited liability for systematic civil rights violations. Without insurance protection, the company faced potential bankruptcy from discrimination lawsuits alone. International partnerships dissolved as foreign airlines distanced themselves from American Heritage's toxic reputation. Code-sharing agreements were terminated, international routes canceled, and joint ventures abandoned as companies sought to protect their own reputations. Richard Blackstone's business empire crumbled under scrutiny of his discriminatory practices across multiple industries. Federal investigators discovered patterns of racial bias in his construction, real estate, and hospitality companies, triggering additional civil rights investigations. Marcus organized nationwide boycotts supported by major corporations, entertainment, figures, and political leaders. The economic pressure was unprecedented, with companies canceling millions in travel contracts and individual consumers choosing alternative airlines. The airline industry watched in horror as systematic discrimination triggered the complete destruction of a major carrier. Other airlines immediately implemented new policies and training programs to avoid similar consequences, creating industry-wide changes through Marcus's example. Do you believe wealthy individuals should use their resources to fight discrimination like this? Comment number 1 if you think Marcus's approach is exactly what America needs. Hit that like button if you're inspired by his strategy, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice and consequence. But here's the real question. What happens when the discriminatory crew members realize they're not just losing their jobs but facing prison time? Will they turn on each other to save themselves, or will they maintain their racist solidarity until the bitter end? The answer will absolutely blow your mind. Federal aviation authorities launched comprehensive investigations of all American Heritage Airlines routes, discovering systematic discrimination against minority passengers across the entire network. The pattern was so extensive that criminal enterprise charges were being considered against senior executives. Marcus's acquisition strategy accelerated as stock prices continued falling. His consortium now controlled 28% of outstanding shares and was positioned to demand board representation and management changes through proxy battles. Employee testimonials revealed the toxic culture that encouraged discrimination through informal rewards and punishments. Crew members who participated in racist practices received preferred assignments and advancement opportunities, while those who objected faced retaliation and marginalization. The transformation Marcus was orchestrating extended beyond American Heritage Airlines to the entire aviation industry. His example inspired discrimination victims at other carriers to come forward with their own stories, creating a wave of accountability that no company could ignore. As federal prosecutors prepared criminal charges against the discriminatory crew members, Marcus prepared for the final phase of his strategy: complete corporate transformation through ownership control and management replacement. The airline that had humiliated him was about to become his property, and he intended to transform it into a model of racial equality and social justice that would inspire corporate America for generations to come. The boardroom at American Heritage Airlines felt like a tribunal as Marcus Wellington, now the largest shareholder with 32% ownership, orchestrated the systematic removal of every employee involved in his discrimination. His transformation from victim to owner represented the ultimate reversal of power dynamics in corporate America. Security footage captured Sarah Mitchell's final moments as an airline employee. Her tearful pleas for mercy echoed through the hallway as armed guards escorted her from the building with a cardboard box containing her personal belongings. The woman who had questioned Marcus's right to first-class seating was now begging for basic employment consideration. "Please, Mr. Wellington," Sarah sobbed, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. "I have children to support. I made a mistake, but I can change. Give me another chance." Marcus observed her breakdown with the cold indifference she had shown him during the flight. "Ms. Mitchell, you had multiple chances to treat me with basic human dignity. Your choices have consequences, and those consequences are now your reality." Jessica Torres faced even harsher punishment due to her supervisory role in enabling systematic discrimination. Federal prosecutors filed criminal civil rights charges, carrying potential sentences of 7 years in federal prison. Her termination was merely the beginning of legal consequences that would destroy her life completely. Captain Robert Morrison lost both his employment and his pilot's license after aviation authorities determined his failure to investigate passenger complaints violated federal regulations. His family connections couldn't protect him from the systematic accountability Marcus was implementing throughout the industry. The terminations extended beyond the immediate crew to include ground personnel, supervisors, and executives who had enabled or ignored discriminatory practices. Marcus's investigation had identified dozens of employees whose actions or inactions contributed to the systematic racism he experienced. Kevin Thompson received a dramatically different fate. The young flight attendant who had shown courage in documenting the discrimination was promoted to Director of Diversity and Inclusion, with a salary increase of $80,000 and equity participation in the transformed airline. "Kevin, your willingness to stand up for what's right saved your career and helped save this company," Marcus explained during their private meeting. "I need people with your integrity to help build the airline we're going to become." The industry Transformation accelerated as other airlines scrambled to avoid American Heritage's fate. Delta, United, Southwest, and American Airlines implemented comprehensive diversity training programs and created passenger advocacy positions to prevent discrimination incidents. Federal legislation proposed by Congress would require mandatory bias training for all airline personnel, with criminal penalties for employees who discriminated against passengers based on race or ethnicity. The Marcus Wellington Act would transform aviation industry practices nationwide. American Heritage Airlines' stock price stabilized as investors recognized Marcus's management capabilities and commitment to transformation. His reputation as a successful technology CEO provided confidence that he could rebuild the airline's reputation and profitability. International recognition of Marcus's achievement came from civil rights organizations worldwide. The United Nations invited him to speak about corporate accountability and the use of economic power to combat systematic racism in business settings. The discriminatory crew members faced industry blacklisting that prevented employment at any major airline. Their racist actions had made them unemployable in aviation, forcing career changes and financial hardship that would last for years. Marcus established the Wellington Foundation for Aviation Equality, funded with $50 million to provide scholarships for minority students pursuing careers in aviation, aerospace engineering, and airline management. The foundation would ensure diverse leadership in future aviation industry generations. New company policies at American Heritage Airlines created the most comprehensive anti-discrimination framework in the transportation industry. Every employee underwent extensive bias training, and passenger complaint procedures were redesigned to prevent discriminatory treatment. The airline's rebranding emphasized its commitment to equality and respect for all passengers, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, or economic status. Marketing campaigns featured diverse passengers and crew members, symbolizing the company's transformation under Marcus's leadership. Competitive airlines attempted to recruit Marcus's business with promises of respectful treatment, but he remained committed to transforming American Heritage Airlines into a model for the entire industry. His ownership provided direct control over policies and practices that affected millions of passengers annually. Employee satisfaction surveys revealed widespread relief at the removal of discriminatory supervisors and the implementation of fair employment practices. Workers who had been afraid to report racism now felt empowered to contribute to the company's positive transformation. The financial turnaround exceeded all projections as corporate customers returned to an airline that demonstrated genuine commitment to equality. Companies that had canceled contracts due to discrimination concerns renewed their partnerships with the transformed carrier. Marcus's example inspired other wealthy individuals to use their resources for social justice causes. The Wellington model of using economic power to combat discrimination became a template for addressing systematic racism in various industries. Legal settlements with discrimination victims established a compensation fund exceeding $100 million, providing justice for passengers who had suffered similar treatment but lacked resources to fight back individually. The fund represented the largest discrimination settlement in aviation history. As the systematic terminations concluded, Marcus prepared for the final phase of his transformation strategy, rebuilding American Heritage Airlines as a beacon of equality and excellence that would inspire corporate America for generations to come. The mahogany-paneled conference room at American Heritage Airlines headquarters had witnessed countless corporate decisions, but none as personally significant as the confrontation Marcus Wellington orchestrated with the architects of his humiliation. Legal cameras recorded every moment for training purposes and historical documentation of justice delivered through economic power. Sarah Mitchell entered the room flanked by her attorney, her usual confidence replaced by the hollow-eyed desperation of someone facing complete life destruction. The woman who had questioned Marcus's right to business class seating now sat across from him as he controlled her professional destiny. "Ms. Mitchell," Marcus began, his voice carrying the authority of ownership and the weight of righteous anger, "this meeting will determine whether you face only unemployment or criminal prosecution for filing false charges against me." Sarah's attorney attempted to negotiate, but Marcus's legal team had prepared an airtight case demonstrating premeditated discrimination and conspiracy to violate federal civil rights laws. The evidence was overwhelming, and mercy was entirely at Marcus's discretion. "I want you to understand the human cost of your racism," Marcus continued, his eyes fixed on Sarah's trembling form. "You didn't just question my seating assignment, you attempted to destroy my reputation and freedom through false accusations." The psychological impact was devastating as Sarah confronted the full scope of her actions and their consequences. Her children had faced harassment at school when her racist behavior went viral. Her husband had filed for divorce to protect his own career. Her entire social network had abandoned her. Jessica Torres entered with even greater legal jeopardy, facing federal charges that could result in 7 years imprisonment. Her supervisory role in enabling systematic discrimination had elevated her case from civil liability to criminal prosecution. "Mr. Wellington," Jessica pleaded, "I was following company policies that had been in place for years. I didn't create the system. I just enforced existing procedures." Marcus's response was swift and merciless. "Ms. Torres, following orders is not a defense for violating civil rights. Your choice was between doing what was right and doing what was profitable, and you chose profit over principle. The confrontation was designed to force acknowledgement of deliberate wrongdoing rather than convenient excuses." Marcus required complete admission of guilt and acceptance of responsibility before considering any form of clemency. Richard Blackstone faced the most severe consequences, with criminal enterprise charges pending for his role in organizing systematic discrimination across multiple businesses. His family connections couldn't protect him from federal prosecutors seeking to make an example of wealthy individuals who enabled racism. The meeting was recorded for mandatory viewing by all American Heritage Airlines employees as part of comprehensive bias training programs. Marcus wanted every worker to understand the personal and professional consequences of discriminatory behavior. "I'm offering each of you a choice," Marcus announced, his voice carrying the finality of a judge delivering sentence. "You can accept responsibility, undergo intensive anti-racism education, and dedicate yourselves to fighting discrimination in your communities. Or you can maintain your innocence and face the full force of criminal prosecution." Sarah chose survival over pride, breaking down completely as she admitted her racist assumptions and learned behaviors. Her public confession would become part of training materials used throughout the aviation industry to illustrate the human cost of discrimination. Jessica's admission included details about systematic policies that encouraged discrimination through informal rewards and punishments. Her testimony provided crucial evidence for federal prosecutors investigating other airline employees and executives. The transformative power of the confrontation extended beyond individual accountability to systematic change. Marcus required each participant to commit to speaking at schools, businesses, and community organizations about the consequences of racism and the importance of equality. Community service requirements included 500 hours of work with civil rights organizations, racial justice advocacy groups, and diversity training programs. The punishments were designed to educate rather than simply punish, creating advocates for equality from former practitioners of discrimination. Marcus's final requirement was the most personally significant. Each participant would contribute to the Wellington Foundation for Aviation Equality, funding scholarships for minority students pursuing careers in aviation and aerospace. Their money would help create the diverse leadership they had tried to exclude. The psychological transformation was complete, as former discriminators became advocates for equality through direct confrontation with the consequences of their actions. The process created genuine change rather than superficial compliance with legal requirements. Federal prosecutors agreed to reduce charges in exchange for cooperation with ongoing investigations of systematic discrimination throughout the airline industry. The cases would provide precedents for future civil rights enforcement in corporate settings. The recorded confrontations became mandatory viewing for airline executives nationwide as the industry grappled with the consequences of Marcus's example. Corporate leaders realized that discrimination could result in complete business destruction by motivated victims with sufficient resources. International attention focused on the confrontation as a model for addressing systematic racism through economic accountability. Marcus's approach demonstrated how individual justice could create systematic change through strategic use of economic power. The meeting concluded with Marcus's final statement about the future he was creating. This airline will become a beacon of equality and respect for all passengers. Your discrimination awakened something that will transform an entire industry, and future generations will benefit from your mistakes. As security escorted the former employees from the building for the final time, Marcus prepared for the ultimate phase of his transformation, rebuilding American Heritage Airlines as a model of corporate social responsibility that would inspire businesses worldwide. 6 months after the most expensive discrimination incident in aviation history, Marcus Wellington stood in the renovated headquarters of American Heritage Airlines, now renamed Equality Air, surveying the transformation he had orchestrated through strategic use of economic power and unwavering commitment to justice. The company's financial recovery exceeded all projections, as corporate customers embraced an airline that demonstrated genuine commitment to equality through ownership structure and operational practices. Revenue increased 43%, as businesses rewarded authentic social responsibility over superficial public relations gestures. Sarah Mitchell completed her community service requirements and bias training programs, emerging as an unlikely advocate for racial justice in corporate settings. Her speaking engagements at schools and businesses carried particular impact due to her personal experience with the consequences of discriminatory behavior. I was raised to believe certain things about people who look different from me, Sarah explained to a packed auditorium of airline employees. Mr. Wellington's response taught me that racism isn't just morally wrong, it's economically stupid and personally destructive. Kevin Thompson's promotion to Chief Diversity Officer transformed him into one of the youngest executives in aviation history. His insider perspective on discriminatory practices made him uniquely qualified to design policies preventing future incidents while advancing minority employees throughout the industry. Jessica Torres served 18 months in federal prison for civil rights violations, but her post-release advocacy work helped other companies identify and eliminate discriminatory practices before they triggered legal consequences. Her transformation demonstrated the possibility of redemption through genuine commitment to change. The Wellington Foundation for Aviation Equality had awarded scholarships to over 200 minority students pursuing careers in aviation, aerospace, engineering, and airline management. The program was creating diverse leadership that would prevent discriminatory practices through representation at every level of industry hierarchy. Federal legislation inspired by Marcus's case required comprehensive, bias training for all transportation employees, with criminal penalties for discriminatory treatment of passengers. The Equality in Transit Act transformed industry practices nationwide while establishing legal precedents for future civil rights enforcement. International recognition came through United Nations awards for corporate social responsibility and innovative approaches to combating systematic racism. Marcus's example inspired similar campaigns in other countries where economic power was used to advance civil rights through business ownership and transformation. Equality Air's employee satisfaction scores ranked highest in the industry as workers embraced a culture that valued diversity, equity, and inclusion over traditional hierarchies based on race and social connections. The company became the preferred employer for aviation professionals seeking meaningful careers in socially responsible organizations. The discriminatory crew members who participated in Marcus's humiliation faced permanent consequences that extended far beyond employment termination. Their racist actions became case studies in business schools, ensuring their mistakes would educate future generations about the costs of discrimination. Competitive airlines adopted Equality Air's policies and training programs to prevent similar incidents that could trigger economic retaliation from motivated victims. The industry-wide transformation demonstrated how individual justice could create systematic change through strategic economic pressure. Marcus's memoir, Flying While Black: How One Flight Changed an Industry, became a bestseller that inspired other discrimination victims to fight back through legal and economic channels. The book provided practical guidance for using wealth and influence to advance civil rights causes. The original boarding pass from Flight 447 was displayed in the National Museum of African American History and Culture as a symbol of how individual courage and strategic thinking could transform systematic oppression into opportunities for positive change. Corporate leadership programs throughout America studied Marcus's example as a model for using business success to advance social justice causes. His approach demonstrated that profit and principle could be combined effectively to create lasting change in discriminatory industries. The quarterly reports consistently showed Equality Air's superior performance in customer satisfaction, employee retention, and financial growth compared to competitors that maintained traditional discriminatory practices. Success proved that equality was not just morally right but economically advantageous. International partnerships flourished as foreign airlines sought to associate with Equality Air's reputation for treating all passengers with dignity and respect. The company's transformation created competitive advantages that translated directly into increased market share and profitability. Marcus reflected on the journey from humiliation to transformation as he prepared for another business trip, this time on his own airline, where every passenger received respectful treatment, regardless of race, ethnicity, or economic status. The discrimination that was intended to diminish him had instead created opportunities to uplift an entire industry. The final irony was that Richard Blackstone, now serving federal prison time for civil rights violations, had inadvertently triggered the most significant advancement in aviation equality since the Civil Rights Act. His racist demands had awakened a sleeping giant whose response transformed an entire industry. Standing in the executive terminal he now owned, Marcus smiled as he watched diverse passengers boarding aircraft staffed by crews trained in equality and respect. The discrimination he had endured was transformed into justice that would benefit millions of travelers for generations to come. His story proved that individual courage, strategic thinking, and economic power could overcome systematic oppression when combined with unwavering commitment to justice. The flight that began with humiliation had landed in triumph, creating a legacy that would inspire civil rights advocates worldwide. Marcus Wellington's transformation from victim to victor teaches us profound lessons about justice, power, and social change. First, systematic discrimination requires systematic responses. Individual complaints often get ignored, but coordinated economic pressure creates lasting change. Second, documentation is crucial when facing racism. Marcus's methodical evidence collection provided the foundation for his legal victory and corporate takeover. The story demonstrates that wealth and influence carry responsibilities beyond personal success. Marcus could have simply moved on after receiving an apology, but he chose to use his resources to prevent future discrimination against others. His approach shows how business principles can serve social justice causes effectively. Most importantly, the story reveals that discrimination always has consequences, even when those consequences aren't immediately visible. Sarah Mitchell and her colleagues assumed Marcus lacked the power to fight back, but their assumptions proved catastrophically wrong. Their racism didn't just hurt Marcus, it destroyed their own careers and transformed an entire industry. The transformation of American Heritage Airlines into Equality Air proves that businesses can be profitable while prioritizing equality and respect. Marcus's success demonstrates that doing the right thing often leads to better financial results than maintaining discriminatory practices. Finally, the story shows that individual courage can create systematic change when combined with strategic thinking and sufficient resources. What would you do if you faced discrimination like Marcus did? Would you have the courage to fight back even when the odds seemed against you? Comment below and tell us about your own experiences with injustice and how you overcame them. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect regardless of their race. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories of people who refuse to accept discrimination and transform their pain into purpose. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand that standing up to racism can create positive change for everyone. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey of justice and transformation. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that inspire courage and promote equality. Remember, every act of kindness and every stand against injustice makes our world a little better. Until next time, keep fighting for what's right and never let anyone make you feel less than you are.